Welcome to another episode of For Success. I am excited that I have in the building one of my friends and clients and partners. Brother Kwame, listen, man, it's probably been about 10 years. I've been chasing you for about a year and a half,
Yeah.
trying to get you on the schedule. You've been all over the country, which is a great thing. But I want you to, in a moment, introduce yourself. But what I like to do is always talk about how we met. Now, I
Yeah.
don't remember the specific story, but I remember you were about to do your TED Talk, and I seen a picture of 2017. It might have been 2015. But whenever you did your TED Talk, we were having a conversation around wardrobe,
Yeah.
and you were being very intentional. We went through my whole system that I do with most of my people that care about that thing. And I got this, image of you doing your suit, and you like, man, I can't believe how this fits. I'm like, well, yeah, this is what we're here for. And so you killed that TED Talk, and you negotiate, and now, like, as a trained lawyer, you found this amazing space, and you've been able to carve out so many different things and help so many different people. So from podcasting to negotiating, I'm sure, huge deals and traveling all over the country. And I remember that first moment before history was about to be made. First of all, welcome
Thank you.
and congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you for being such an important part of the journey, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So you could do a more appropriate branding conversation if you want to introduce yourself better than that. But I had to just make the link as to where we met.
Yeah. Well, first, we can't just tell a snippet of the story. I have to say something about my side real quick.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I really love doing is seeing a master at their craft.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with a master, when they can describe something so simply and give you a sense of understanding that you didn't have before, but I also see the depth of understanding that you have to be able to communicate it so simply, right? And so clearly. And so I was just wrapped with attention when you were talking because it was like a science. I felt like I was in class. I kept on asking all these questions, and you said, okay, I remember you said there's a little bit of reddish tone in your complexion. It's different from mine, so oranges will pop well for you.
Right.
You see what I'm wearing today?
Exactly.
Right? And that was just never a color combo that I would wear, like the blue and the orange. And you talked about the psychology of it. I was just blown away. And so I didn't tell you this. I couldn't let this go to your head at the moment. But I said, whatever this man recommends, I'm going to do. And it worked well. Right. And now the TED Talk has over 600,000 views, viewed all over the world. And I'm really glad to say that I look my best because of you.
Oh, man, listen, 600,000 views is amazing. And obviously, I'm a small part of that, but making you feel good. And people don't talk about that professional attire all the time, because when you're presenting and you already went to school to do what, you were already about to tell your story, you were already queued up. I'm sure you didn't know it was going to be this amazing, right? That when you took that stage at that time to communicate, and I always have this weird thing where I remember colors of suits. So I know it was blue,
Yeah.
and I think we did a combination with some sort of pastel or something, because again, because of your skin tone, things pop off, and it brightens up looks, and it draws people to you.
Right.
And so, you did your part, I did mine. We worked as a team.
For sure.
But I've always been proud, just to see you on these major platforms, and, to get to the point where we could talk about, some of that journey of, how you started. And then kind of what do you think led you to success is really where I like to start before we get into the principles. Because when people hear 600,000 views, and then you didn't talk about how many times you're all over the country and all these other large venues that you're speaking in as well. But can you just talk about like that moment a little bit, like where you started from? You getting your, your degree, but did you think it would lead you there?
I always had a vision to help people. That was always my goal. That's very imprecise, but the spirit was in a good spot.
Yeah.
So for me in undergrad, I studied psychology. I wanted to do therapy. I wanted to be a clinical psychologist.
Wow.
Either that or psychiatry. Then I started to get interested in politics because I said, if I really want to help people, I could do that at scale.
Yeah.
So that's why I did a law degree and a master of public policy. I never really saw myself practicing. I saw that as a conduit for the next step.
Sheesh.
And so then when I was doing those 2 degrees, still getting it done in 3 years, so very intense.
Oh, wow.
3 years.
Yeah.
I discovered something really important. I didn't want to be a politician. I was like, I cannot.
I'm like, I can see the head back. Okay.
Right. I just did not want that. So when I graduated at age 24, I passed the bar, and I was sitting there getting sworn in with the Supreme Court, and I was asking myself, what do I want to be when I grow up? And so for me, this whole journey with negotiation, I used this on myself to improve my life. I was a people pleaser for a very long time. I used psychology to overcome that fear, and then negotiation negotiation success in law school is what gave me the skills to do it. So I recognized for me the best things in life are on the other side of difficult conversations. So I wanted to give that same freedom to other people because I don't realize how many people are living limited lives because they don't have this skill to stand up for themselves, to speak persuasively. So that's why I started all of this.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I never knew about the psychology piece, but the political piece, although you're not doing it, makes sense.
Right.
I can see it like, oh yeah, I can see that. But no, so you've been helping people and you got on that stage and so you made this pivot. Now that TED Talk, was it about negotiation that day?
Yeah, but framed differently, just
Okay.
from a conflict resolution type of
Yeah.
pace. But the thing was also talking about the confidence level too,
Mm.
because what I recognize when it comes to the communication space, a lot of times we're giving recipes to people who are afraid to get in the kitchen.
Mm.
It's not that they don't know what to say; it's that they can't say it when it matters. It's a
Mm.
confidence piece. That's a psychological challenge that
Wow.
you have to overcome within yourself.
Mm.
And so think about this. I call these shower comebacks. So imagine you have this argument. You're going back and forth. You freeze in the moment, and then late at night, you're just thinking about that situation. You're taking a shower, and then you're like, "Damn it! I should have said that." We always know what to say. We just can't say it when it matters.
Right.
So it's the not just the skill set. It's also the mindset.
Mm.
And so then when you see the background, it makes sense. People think that I'm coming at this from my expertise as a lawyer, and I've done hundreds of mediations as a mediator. But even before that, it's the psychology that helps you to understand what you need to do from the inside out.
Mm.
And one of the best compliments I ever got after mediation was something that initially, without context, could sound like an insult. So did the mediation. It went really well, and the guy was shaking my hand, and he said, "What? By the way, what's your background?" I said, "Well, I'm a lawyer." He's like, "With all due respect, you don't sound like a lawyer."
Mm.
And I said, "Well, my undergrad's in psychology." He's like, "That's what I was feeling." And so when people bring me in, all these big companies like Google, Apple, NASA, Intel, all these major Fortune 500 companies,
Yeah.
like some of them are negotiating over like about $2 billion worth of spend every year. So these are big deals. They're
Mm.
really surprised at how psychology heavy, empathetic, and human centered my approach is.
Yeah.
But then when you understand how I got to this point, it starts to make a lot more sense.
Wow. So you have your own journey that you started to frame.
Right.
And as you identified internally, you started to say, this is a skill set that is helping me and it will help others.
Right.
And then it started to like really put your path forward. And
Mhm.
you're saying huge companies like NASA and like, so for everybody, right, that is in this audience, I'm trying to communicate what are some successful things that we can do on a base level for negotiation. You talked about confidence.
Yeah.
You talked about internal things.
Mhm.
So I know we addressed some things when it came to clothing because that helps, right?
Right.
But like, what are some things that you typically share? Like
Yeah.
when it comes to like, what are some basic steps?
Here are some things, man, because what I've found is that the core skills to be a great negotiator, everybody has them, which sounds ridiculous to say.
Yeah.
So after over 1,800 episodes of my podcast, I've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been a grind. We've had some of the biggest names on the show.
Yes.
Anybody who's written a bestseller in negotiation has been on the show.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really incredible to see the reach. I remember one time I had somebody who's been an idol in the space who wrote an incredible book. Her name is Sheila Heen. She's a Harvard program, a Harvard lawyer,
Wow.
a law professor too. And I was excited to get her on the show. And before the show started, she's like, "Man, I'm excited to be on the show. I've been recommending your podcast to my students for years."
Oh, wow.
I was like, wow. Right? Wow. And so I've got the greatest minds in the space coming on the podcast, giving their best information for free. That was my goal.
That's
like,
amazing.
how can we democratize this content? And so I started to think about this like qualitative research. What are all the people who are the best in the world at this skill? What are they saying? They might come from different industries, but they're approaching it differently, but they're foundationally saying the same thing. So it led to 2 discoveries and a creation. So discovery number 1, the best negotiators adapt and flow. They embrace surprise. They're willing to make these adjustments. So they'll prepare very specifically, but they'll make adjustments based on the data, right? Like think about any champion athlete. You got to make in-game adjustments,
Very
right?
true.
And so you don't just go in with the same plan and exit with the same plan every time. They're willing to adjust. The next thing is you only need 3 core skills to be a great negotiator. Just 3. You need to be really great at listening. You have to be curious, and you have to be able to manage emotions, both yours and the other side.
Mm.
And if you can do those things, then you're going to be really good. And if you spend the rest of your life trying to get a little bit better on each of those things with every conversation, then you're going to be really good.
Mm.
And then when you stop and think about what a tactic or strategy is, it's usually one or more of these skills put together and utilized in the right space with the right person at the right time. That's it. That's
You make it. Hey, you talked earlier about people that are masters in their skill and how they communicate things quickly, and that's exactly what you did about negotiating. He made it sound so easy. Like, yeah, you could do this too.
That's
For a
it.
small fee. No, I'm just playing. But nah, I think when you say the word negotiate, it's funny that my mind went straight to money.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about houses and cars, right?
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, you know what? As you started to talk about the psychological side, now I start thinking about, wow, like there's negotiation in relationships.
That's it, man.
There's negotiation in almost every side of when you're making these decisions. There's an internal negotiation with yourself that you're talking to yourself about, what am I going to accept and what am I not? So I would
Yeah.
love to hear, a little bit more elaboration as you're talking about your specialty. I'm like, oh, this goes a lot deeper than I've even gave it merit from
Yep.
listening from afar.
Yep. And listeners, I promise we did not choreograph this
At
part,
all.
right? So this, as you start to recognize it, you start to come across the same revelations everybody does,
Right.
right? So the way I define negotiation is anytime you're in a conversation and somebody in the conversation wants something, that's a negotiation.
Wow.
The problem is that we are constantly in negotiations. We just don't recognize it. And if you don't recognize you're in a negotiation, then you don't have the signals to use the skills that I'm talking about. You just go in and freestyle and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Stuck with shower comebacks and nothing else. You know? And so we wonder why we struggle.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, we have to identify this. So when I'm on stage doing these big events for these big companies, I use this program that allows them to interact. So it might be like 2,000 people in the audience, but you from the back, you can interact and see your stuff on the screen, right? It's like, it's part lecture, part motivation, part improv.
Yeah, right.
You know? And so I would define negotiation in that way. Anytime you're in a conversation and somebody wants something, and then I would give them an opportunity. When are you negotiating in your personal and professional lives? Couple things happen. What do you think is the most common answer?
Oh, like I said, I think it's about buying something, selling something is probably the most common that the mind will go
You
to.
know what's funny?
What?
It's dinner.
Oh, really?
Everybody says dinner.
Oh no, where are we going tonight? Where are we going to
Exactly.
eat? Oh yeah.
Are you cooking? Am I cooking? What? We didn't plan this. That's
See,
the
I would have never
negotiation.
thought that was a negotiation, but
But it's
it is.
probably the same with you too.
Always say,
right?
what do you want to eat? I don't know.
Always negotiating, right?
Right.
And so I would say, look at the screen with my kid, with my spouse, with my friends, with my parents, all these things.
Yeah.
We're negotiating with the people who are closest to us the most. And we don't think about it that way. So we struggle. And if you start to use these skills in those moments, you're going to get the relationship closer. But again, so with those two discoveries, it led to my creation of compassionate curiosity. So it's a 3-step mental model you could use for all of your conversations. So it's never a situation of whether or not it applies. It's just a question of how. So step 1, acknowledge and validate the emotions. There's an emotional issue. We have to address it, lower the emotional temperature. Step number 2, get curious with compassion, ask open-ended questions compassionately, and you gather information. Step number 3, joint problem solving. So it's not me versus you, it's you and me versus the problem. We work together through it. So you make the right read in the motion in the moment. So they might not have an emotional issue, just start with curiosity. If they're answering questions, they get emotional, then you know you're back to step 1, acknowledge and validate it. So it sounds like you're a bit frustrated with this. Tell me about how you're feeling. And it calms them down. But it's designed for not just the external negotiation, but also the internal negotiation with yourself, because you're going to be triggered too. What am I feeling? I'm mad.
Right.
Okay. Anger is a secondary emotion, not a primary emotion. What else am I feeling? Well, I'm feeling disappointed. I'm feeling taken advantage of. Okay. You're going to start to calm down. Well, why do I feel that way? You explore that in yourself. And then step number 3, how do I work with myself to figure out what the next step is? Maybe I should have a conversation. Maybe I should take a walk, right? You know?
Right.
And you can get real with yourself by using the exact same framework to have better conversations with yourself first, so you're prepared for the conversation with somebody else.
Yeah, I think, man, those are some wonderful keys to internally do some checks and externally have some exercising skills.
Yes.
I think what it leads me to think about is like, man, you have to start with some non-negotiables though, right?
Yes.
So now, what are my non-negotiables when it comes to my life or my vision or my future or even my purpose? Because I think the problem with Like you said, if you don't have any vision, like, you
Right.
know, people perish for the lack of knowledge, but also for the lack of
Right.
vision and intentionality. So if we were to reverse that, because these are all powerful things, assuming that our audience and the people that we communicate with understand exactly where they want to be. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the hardest part is like when you're negotiating and you have no boundaries because you have no understanding of where you want to go. So how, and I know I'm going back and forth with this wrestle here, but it's like, how do you reverse engineer this, right? Before we get to this high level operating of, wow, I negotiated more than I thought.
Right.
I
Right.
negotiated with my family, friends, and then business as well. I'm negotiating in all of these decisions, but like, how do I really resonate with an internal core back to myself
Yeah.
to say, all right, I'm going to be stable with these things? Because I feel like you had to be there for you to have this identification to say, I was going to do all these things and you end up stepping on the stage and it led you somewhere else. You had
Mm-hmm.
to have some non negotiables to say, here's how I want my life to be.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that prompts you to think about, you know, where you were at that moment or what you would share from that.
Yeah, so for me, it comes down to this. It I'm guided more by the fear of regret than the fear of
Mm,
failure. That's big because failure is just kind of in the moment. It hurts in the moment.
yeah.
But regret is a different kind of pain, a
Yeah.
pain that you can't do anything about.
Yeah.
I could fail, I could come back and do better. Regret is something that is a past looking thing where, in given my position right now, I can't go back in the past and change the thing that I did. If
Mm,
I could have, I would have.
yeah.
And what the studies show is that we regret the things that we didn't try more so than the things that we tried and fail.
Mm,
We can look back and respect a failure because at least I tried.
yeah.
But to know that I didn't even earn the right to say that I couldn't do it, and
Mm,
now I'm left with this question of what life could have been,
yeah.
that's a pain that I just refuse to allow myself to
Mm,
feel. So I'm willing to go through a high degree of pain in the moment, knowing that I'm trying not to impress other people or even myself in the moment, but the future deathbed version of myself.
mm,
That's the guy I'm playing for. So he dictates what's valuable to me
yeah.
more so than me in the moment.
Yeah. That makes sense. And you said something, we had a little huddle before about taking a big swing, right?
Yes.
And it makes me think about my son who's in the room, who's a baseball player.
Oh, very nice.
Baseball and basketball, but primarily baseball now. And, you know, if you're 3 out of 10, you're an all-star.
Right.
You know, two and a half out of 10, you're an all-star. So it sounds like you had some non-negotiables that you didn't want to, you know, when I look back at my life, I want to make sure I took those swings. And it's the
Right.
same thing that I said when I started my path forward in clothing
Mm-hmm.
was, you know, when I knew my son was on the way, I was like, you know what? He's gonna do what I do, not what I say.
Right.
So you have to go chase your dream because I chased mine. So clothing was a hobby that turned into a professional, you know, thing for me. I didn't know it was going to turn into what it has, right?
Right.
But I knew that I had to take some big steps and big strides.
Right.
And no matter what failure I experienced, I could always go back to that as a reference to say, hey, this is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
This is the steps that I took. And so here is where you start from.
Right.
You know, so I know I've kind of let the cat out the bag a little bit.
This is big.
But can
Yeah.
you talk about that big swing? Because that's what I heard when you said that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And again, for me, it's like I want to win on my terms and I want to lose on my terms.
Mm,
I'd rather have a loss on my terms than winning on somebody else's terms,
mm,
right? So for you, think about with clothing. If you could have lived a life being a banker that made more money,
right.
like that still would have been winning on somebody else's terms.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been you winning. It would have been some other version of yourself that you didn't even like, you know?
true.
So
It's very true.
So for me, it's like I'm going down. If I'm going down, I'm going down swinging. Right? You know, that's my mentality.
Exactly.
And so I've recognized that throughout my life, this has been the through line. For me, the idea is take big swings, but more so big swings only. So it's not
Mm,
just like from time to time. It's like with everything, I'm going to try to do it the very best that I can, because the curiosity will kill me. It's like, I saw that swing, I didn't take it. I wonder what life could have been. I'm not
mm,
living with that regret. So for me, I recognize that if I have what it takes to hit the ball out of the park, the only thing that holds me back is whether or not I'm willing to take a big swing.
mm,
It's been a consistent through line. And so for me, getting to this point where I had the #1 negotiation podcast in the world, since been overtaken, but still #2 ain't bad, right? And but for almost a decade, #1 with
yeah.
16 million downloads to the top of the niche. Like when we started, I was 27 years old.
Mm.
And the thing is, in the negotiation industry, you're not seen as a respected figure usually until like your late 40s, 50s, 60s even.
Wow.
Because usually you come to the space after a successful career in something else.
Mm.
I'm a hostage negotiator, retired, now I'm here. I'm a CEO, retired, now I'm here. Professor, retired, now I'm here as a negotiation expert. And I had the audacity to start at 27.
Right.
Now you know why my suit had to look so good.
Exactly.
Right? I
You
had
gotta
to
look
put
like
it
you
all
grind.
together, right? But I said, no, I see this opportunity. I never planned on being a lawyer who practiced very long. It was always a parlay thing. This
Yeah.
is the swing that I see. I'm going to do it.
Mm.
And I recognized that no matter what it is that I was doing, whether it was in me wanting to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist,
Yeah.
me practicing law, being a politician, and even me as the CEO of the American Negotiation Institute, I always wanted to be the bridge between where somebody currently was in life and where they wanted to go.
Mm.
I want to be part of that journey, whatever it happens to be. And now I realize that with negotiation, I'm at this niche, which is great. And this past year, I was recognized as one of the top 10 negotiation experts in the world.
Mm.
And so I invested 10 years in building this brand. And now I think the big swing is big swings only.
Mm.
So after
Yeah.
10 years, 1,800 episodes, we're going to wrap up Negotiate Anything and launch Big Swings Only. And I think this is the show that everybody needed but didn't know they did.
Mm. Yeah, I think, man, all I heard is, I almost heard DJ Khaled, all I do is win. And the reason why I say that is because like these conversations is something similar, and we've been around each other, doing business and other things. They're always enriching for me, right?
Right.
And so the reason why I say that is like I heard why you win.
Mm.
Is because you didn't say just big swings. So you don't just swing, you swing, big swings only. That's a mindset,
Right.
and it's an approach.
Yeah.
And like all the people that I've met, like I was just at the draft, just dressed the number 7 pick. And,
Nice.
from there, I had one of my guys, Brandon Phillips, retired from the Reds. And we went from WrestleMania to Cincinnati. And we were talking about, baseball and how we got there, and even with, Sonny Styles and Lorenzo Styles Jr. and Big Lorenzo. So I'm doing all this stuff traveling, but there's a lot of conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of prep before we get there, right?
Yeah.
So even when they're talking to me, as you know, I got this big event coming up. I need this for that. But we're
Yeah.
talking about the details, and I'm hearing why people are successful.
Yeah.
And you can see why they're successful. They do take big swings, but it's like, man, imagine how many swings I'm taking at the highest level of saying, I'm trying to knock it out the park. I'm not just trying to get a butt and just trying to survive. So I think this is an enriching conversation because, like you said, there was definitely a version of, Gary Jones as a, who knows, banker, connector, something like that. But as an entrepreneur, I've been able to travel and get these experiences with other people that are successful. And I'm hearing what you're saying, right? Which is the mindset and the approach is what changes everything. And that's why I really wanted to have this conversation multiple times in multiple ways, is to say you're really one step away from success.
Yes.
By hearing something like that, to say, you know what, when I approach the batter's box, I'm not just waiting on my pitch. I'm going to send it to another galaxy.
Exactly.
That's a different person.
Yes.
That's the Hall of Famer that's there at the plate. He's like, I'm not just catching the ball. I'm not just here passing time. I'm not just working out the pat. I'm the greatest of all time. I'm preparing to take a big swing. So I think like that's what I heard as you started to communicate. Is that all I do is win, because that's how I'm approaching my craft.
100%. And the thing that people miss, because they focus on the big swings and the ones that hit, it's the fact that there are so many that people miss. And people will forget about the failures once you landed big.
Yeah.
That's it. You just take one and then you're an overnight success.
Exactly.
Right? Nobody sees that.
Exactly.
And so the only way you can do this is if you can bet on your own strength. And we need to move from thinking about it in terms of resilience to thinking about it in terms of anti-fragility. So think about resilience is. What is that? So I can like grit really hard, and I can take the pains and difficulties of life and I'll still be fine, which is great. Like thinking about it from an evolutionary perspective, that's good enough. Survival of the fittest. Doesn't need to be thriving. Survival's good enough. But anti-fragility is something different. It means when something bad happens, you get stronger. Let's talk about it from anime terms. These are Saiyans. Saiyans is either I win or I get stronger. But you can beat me. You could lose now or you can lose later. It's going to happen.
Oh, that's crazy.
Right? That's what it is. So for me, the thing is, if I take a little swing, I get a little loss. That doesn't really hurt enough to trigger growth.
Mm.
I like winning. It feels really nice, but I might not like losing, but I love it because every time I've leveled up, it's because of a loss, not a win. The
Mm.
successes don't propel me, it's the failures. But if you can strip the fear from the failure and just take it as data and improve, you recognize that the big swings mentality, you just can't lose. It's either I knock it out of the park or I take an L and I dissect this thing and figure out where I need to grow in order for my next big swing to hit.
Mm.
So once I recognize the discrepancy between where I am and where I need to be, then I'm at a different level when I take my next big swing.
Mm.
You can't lose as long as you can really bet on yourself and know that you're strong enough to not just survive, but thrive, even in the face of failure.
Yeah, that was a powerful saying that you said. It's not that I'm not losing, I'm getting stronger. But I think people don't really talk about, the loss or, how open you are to those things. When you're taking those swings, you're vulnerable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you don't want to sit there and settle on it. But I always talk to my son about why these coaches or people are successful a lot of times because they're coachable.
Yeah.
When you're around great people, they listen to experts. We just had this conversation.
Yes.
It's like, hey, if you're around somebody that does something as for a living, you listen to that context instead of your own voice first to say, hey, if I'm going to get a suit, yeah, man, I think the light gray will look good. I can tell why. This is why.
Yep.
And I'm going to give you the reasons why. And when you walk in that room, especially for your audience, you're prepared because you took really a high level advice. But what happens, I think, with people that don't win is they don't understand you're listening to voices that can't help you.
Right.
So the voice that helps is big swings.
Mm-hmm.
Is no, I don't lose, I get stronger. I'm analyzing, I'm coachable.
Right.
And I'm gonna win because my mindset, I'm gonna learn why I lost.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna take a big swing next time. There is no
Yes.
losing, because in losing, I'm winning.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the thing. It's like I'm excited now for the opportunity. So here's the way I think about it. This is the mindset. I'm the author of my own life. I write the story, and I just need to keep on telling myself better stories. That's it. And then also everybody has a co-author named Fate. Every once in a while, Fate's going to take the pen, write its own story.
Yeah.
That's the loss. That's the thing that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
And your job is to take the pen back and write a better story about that loss. Right?
Right.
That's it. So if I tried to take a big swing, it didn't work. It's like I could think about it and tell the story. I'm a loser. I wasn't good enough. I shouldn't have even tried. Based on the data, that I could create that story. But with the same data, I could tell a better story. Hey, listen, you tried, and that shows your strength and resilience. So that's good. You were close. If you just tweak these things, you would have been better for next time. So next time you see another opportunity, you're going to take a big swing. You're going to be ready for it. Same data, different story. And so the things that happen, they're not good, they're not bad, they're just story fragments. And it's your job to put the story together in a way that makes sense. And if you can't, then that's your fault. Right?
Man.
It's a completely different mentality.
Yeah.
And you recognize that whoever it is listening to this, they all have what it takes. They just don't know the mindset and how to tell a better story, and a story that always propels you to success.
Yeah.
If I'm telling my story, I'm the main character. I want to watch a show that's really good.
Right.
In this, if I'm watching a movie, you know how bad it would be if the person loses and then they just lay down and never try again.
Right.
It's not a movie I want to watch.
Exactly. What are we doing here?
Right? So I'm trying to entertain the future version of myself when I think back on what I did. Right? And I always want to look back and be proud.
Yes. Yes. I have a question again around this big swing.
Yeah.
So when you say big swing, we're defining and thinking about success and about winning. And winning happens in your own life. I think you
Right.
define your own success.
Exactly.
So if you can maybe talk about like how do we define our success? And then how do we get this perception of a big swing? Because again, sometimes people are in different phases of their career, right? They're coming to this self-evaluation. They're learning about their own negotiable things, their boundaries. They're growing into this place.
Yeah.
But then it's like, how do I change my lens to think bigger, to say, what is a big swing for me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You have to be real with yourself. So I had a guest on my podcast. His name is DJ Vanis. And so he is an Air Force veteran, 20 years, but he's also, his background is he's Native American, part of the Ottawa tribe. So his book is The Warrior Within, bringing a lot of Native tradition to helping you to live a better life. So he said in Native tradition, you have this concept of medicine, and anything that is good for you is medicine. And the problem with society and a lot of people today is that they do things that are bad for them, and then they deprioritize their personal medicine instead of prioritizing medicine, which is not just the exogenous pills you take. Medicine for somebody might be video games. Medicine for somebody else might be going to a comedy show, right? It's different for different people. So you got to take your medicine, right?
Right.
And so for you, you have to recognize what is good for you, because somebody's big swing, I know for me, there have been times in my life where the big swing was sitting down and taking a day off, because now I'm just working just to prove to somebody that I'm a hard worker, even though I'm burnt out and I actually have earned a break.
Yeah.
Sometimes the big swing might not look like a big swing to somebody else.
Right.
Somebody might judge your big swing and they see me on that day after not knowing that I worked so hard before and I'm finally taking a day of rest and it was hard for me to give myself permission to do that. They might say, look at this guy laying down. Doesn't he have a business and a family and everything? It's like, this is my first day off in months.
Right.
But the big swing was giving myself permission. So sometimes the big swing might look like a grind. Sometimes it's recognizing that you shouldn't. Sometimes it's recognizing that the thing you need most is investment in your mental health. Sometimes it's investment in your family or your relationships. But it's up to you to be real with yourself, to understand what a big swing is for you, and giving yourself the courage to be yourself when society and people on the outside are pushing you to be someone else.
Yeah, man. I feel like this new thread is going to be an amazing shift, and I'm looking forward to it, because now we've been talking, it's almost like a therapeutic session of like, oh, we went from negotiating and talking about the Institute, which you've done amazing things, and then talking about your career when you first started doing the TED Talk, and then how many places you've been, to now, like, you know, really opening up the lens even more, because, you know, obviously I learned some more about negotiating and how much I'm doing it, to now lining up to take this big swing. I think that, you know, your audience, and even hopefully even new people that are going to discover you from this conversation, are in for a treat, that they can learn some things, because like the best thing that we have in life, man, is people that can enlighten and encourage you, because there's so many things that you want to do in your life, right? You could think about your goals, and imagine if you had a blueprint or somebody say, oh no, you're close. You know, swing this way. Your hands are just coming through too slow. And there's one fix that can change your life.
Right.
And so, like, again, winners and people that win, you learn how and why they win, because they're listening intently, right? They're like, oh, that's what it is. I'm not swinging big consistently.
Right.
I'm not listening to people like yourself to grow, so that I can understand the lens of like, what are people doing at these large corporations, so I can line myself up to be in line with what they're doing.
100%. 100%. And I'm excited to share those stories now too.
Yeah.
Because I've recognized that sometimes we could over focus on like strategies, tactics, and things like that, and forget the things that are required internally in terms of like courage and mindset that can do so much. You might have everything it takes. You're just not aiming it the right way. You might have everything it takes and not taking that big swing. But hearing the stories from other people, that's how you can get that inspiration. Sometimes give yourself that permission, because you can't shoot at a target that you can't see.
Yes.
But if you can see other people achieving good, incredible things, now you have the audacity to dream bigger, because you actually know what is out there.
Listen, man, I am so happy that you actually had the time to stop in. I was like, man, we missed so many appointments, but it's good, because I'm glad that you're busy, and that we can still connect on this type of platform in a different way that we talked about. So I'll share this as we close, because I'm sure my time is getting there. We would have these conversations about clothing, and I'm going through my whole piece. You're like, dudes, you should be doing this. You should be on the show. You should be sharing. And I was like, I like sharing with my guys. And so here we are some years later. And I text you like, I'm finally doing it. Now I need you to come.
Yes. So that's the message for everybody listening. Sometimes you see that friend who could be doing more, just keep on harassing them for years. And eventually they'll start a podcast and bring you on it.
Exactly.
Right? So yeah, man, this is so good to see.
Yeah,
so
man. So thank you for the encouragement. Congratulations on what you're doing.
Thank you.
Keep going. I can't wait to see what you do with taking that big swing and that next step. And obviously I'll be right there watching and supporting you, man. And thanks again for taking the time to come on the show, to share with my audience, man, so they can see, you know, all the great things that you're doing, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. And one last thing to the listeners too. So after you see this, you're going to start taking your big swing. I just ask you to do one thing: document it and share it. Because a lot of times we are humble to our own detriment and the detriment of other people.
Yeah.
And it's not being arrogant. It is just being willing to show people who are in your tribe who need inspiration that it's possible. And you don't know how many people you can help just by taking the time to share your story. So it's not about you, it's about the people that you can serve. So sometimes we do ourselves and are the people who could really learn from us a disservice by playing too small in terms of sharing the story. So don't just tell a better story to yourself, tell a better story to the world.
Wow. Bars. Appreciate you. See, you can tell when a pro walks in and give you a proper close with an amazing point. And we're out.
That's great.